video, we will talk about some of the important questions being asked in the customer screening interview. A lot of subscribers have specifically requested for this video, and I would say, irrespective of bank or financial institution you are applying for, these questions will definitely be asked. And I can assure you that if you watch this video from beginning till end, this will definitely improve your chances to get selected. And if you're watching this video or you are on our channel for the first time, please subscribe for more videos on email and KYC concepts. And if you have any question or feedback, please share your comments. So let's begin with the first questions. We all know that in all the interviews we'll face this question, and this question definitely break the ice for an interviewer, and can set the tone for your whole interview. And it is quite relevant. And as an interviewer, you get an understanding whether the candidate has required skills as per job description. So let's understand how to answer this question, since it is an interview for customer screening process, which is primarily PIP screening, sanction screening, or adverse media check. So please highlight customer screening specific experience, and then you may talk about your other experiences in any other process. You may also highlight your AML or KYC related certification, such as CAMS, etc. It will have a good impact on your interviewer. We have to understand that we have to customize our answer as per the job description and role. We can't give the same answer for all the job opportunities. So what I mean is, if you're applying for an analyst or a process associate, so we need to talk about our experience of conducting sanction, PEP, negative media, or other watch list screening for bank's customer. So talk about your exposure to various customer screening tool like WorldCheck, RDC, LexisNexis, etc. And you may also highlight or talk about line of business where you are performing customer screening. So whether it is retail, commercial, wholesale, talk about line of business. So it gives a good impact. And if the job requirement specifically talk about the line of business, then stress on or highlight the line of business which matches with the current requirement. And also, if you're working as a SME and supporting the customer screening team to identify data and documentation gap, or to coach them in performing research, you may talk about it accordingly. And similarly, for manager or team lead role, we need to talk about our responsibility as a manager, execution of the program, creation of policy and procedure, and reporting to senior management, provide leadership, management, coaching to direct report, working collaboratively with cross-functional group leaders to get result or drive results. So that would specifically give a comfort to an interviewer, and it also give an understanding that you have the required skill for the current profile. And then the next question you may expect would be, tell me more about your current role or current profile. Now, as a candidate, we need to highlight all the work or responsibility that have been assigned to you. For example, if you are part of profiling a case, if you are also working as a subject matter expert, we need to highlight this. Also, if we are managing a team or handling their queries, managing a stakeholder, this all need to be highlighted. You may talk about whether you're part of Sanction, PEP, or negative media screening team. Uh, like I have seen some bank have a separate team for each uh, each type of screenings. Talk about different matching analysis, or you may quote number of matching rules being used in your process. So maybe you can talk about name matching analysis, like using or maybe a use of DOB or date of birth, country or location, photo, etc. For the matching analysis. Talk about a scenario which need to be escalated as per policy and guidelines. For example, true positive cases, cases which would require, or there may be a cases which would require more information. All that need to be escalated. Talk about a customer screening tool being used in your process like WorldCheck, RDC, LexisNexis. So this is all very important uh, pointers which need to be kept in mind when you're answering this question. Now moving on to the next question. Why it is important for banks and financial institution to perform PIP screening, sanction screening, and adverse media. So we all understand that global financial authorities require banking and financial institutions to implement customer screening measures as part of their AML program in order to determine their customer profile. While PEP status is not an indication of criminal activity or involvement, but it is important compliance obligation in almost every part of the world due to potential risk. Similarly, allowing sanction entities and individual to perform transaction through your bank may lead to fines and penalties. Further, adverse media help to identify additional risk, if any, held by bank's customer. So, given the value of customer screening, it's no surprise that financial institutions continue to invest heavily in their capability. However, every organization approaches it differently. If we talk about sanctions, some banks screen against basic government sanction list, while others screen against a much wider array of watch list. And these additional lists can include regulatory agencies, action, fugitive list, exclusion list, disciplinary action, enforcement action, and the law enforcement press. Now let's talk about PEP screening. Virtually every bank need to determine whether the customer is or associated with a PEP as they present a higher risk for bribery and corruption by virtue of their position and influence. Some banks screen solely against limited set of PEPs, for example, country or I would say and state leaders, while other widen the net to include PEPs such as judicial and military leader. In case of adverse media, screening customer for negative mentions in public domain, news and data sources can identify individual who do feature on watch list or are defined as PEP. However, many organizations do not include adverse media in their screening program and choose to simply rely on PEP or sanction or watch list screening. Now, moving on to the next question: how often bank and financial institution perform customer screening? Uh, and I think this, like we need to understand this question, right? Organization need to perform a detailed, politically exposed person or and sanction check when onboarding a new customer, as well as during the ongoing review of client, to ensure that organization reputation, revenue, and capital are protected. Moving on to next question, and I think this question is very critical, because here we need to explain, or where interviewer would understand whether we understand the whole customer screening process or not. So in this question, we need to clearly explain the customer screening process. So mainly the customer screening would be divided into four main processes: customer screening alert generation, performing an investigation, case summary and documentation, and last, disposing an alert. Now, in order to detail out the whole process, as a step one, you may talk about which customer screening tool, RDC, WorldCheck, LexisNexis, etc., you are currently working on. Step two, talk about the process where we enter data field such as name, address, country, etc., of the private individual or entity that need to be screened in the screening tool. Some of the screening tool give you an option to select appropriate search mode, such as exact match or part match, etc. And also, if you can select the different category of lists such as PEP, sanction, internal watch list, etc., to be screened against depending on your bank process and guidelines. When the search is performed, the screening result will throw an output which would definitely fall into three categories post your investigation. Now, if you need to talk now here you need to talk a little about the investigation. So, basis the data available on bank customer and the screening tool, you would look into different matching rules. For example, date of birth, country, photo, unique identifiers such as passport, driving license, etc. Sometime you may also need to perform external searches on PEP, as PEP may have died, but your bank customer is still alive. So this would lead to false positive. So if it's a false positive, we need to create in like in some of the bank, like you are required to create a PDF version of the screening result, and that PDF report would be added to the customer CDD pack as evidence, and you would inform the respective KYC team as per the process and guidelines of the bank. If it's a true positive, means customer is part of sanction list, PEP list, etc., it will need to be forwarded to the MLRO compliance FCC team, requiring their advice on how to proceed. And here we also need to create a PDF version of the screening result, which also get attached to customers CDD pack as evidence. And in case of potential hit scenario, uh, an analyst will compare customer detail or identifier like name, address, DOB, nationality, occupation, profile, etc. If educate information is not available, customer screening alert is escalated to level 2 investigator or for MLRO advice. L2 investigator would validate the escalated alerts using additional tools and conclude the case as false positive or true positive. And then when we talk about the whole process, where we have spoken about how the alert is generated, how it is investigated, and then how we document and how we dispose the alert. This will definitely give a comfort to your interviewer that you understand the concept, process, and attribute of the customer screening process. Let's move on to the next question. How do you ascertain if the customer screening alert is false positive? So we have already touched some part of this question in the previous question. Uh, every bank and financial institution would define matching or mismatching criteria. However, we will see like matching criteria like unique identifier, for example, passport or driving license. So they can be exact or close or a exact or close match, address match being performed, partial or exact name match, photo match, screening tool like RDC, uh, like in some of the cases do provide photo of pet, which can be matched with bank customer photo IDs. Nature of business, sometime occupation of PEP and bank customer also mismatches. So also through like in lot of cases we also perform external search, where we try to understand if if somebody is a PEP and whether he still hold that position or whether he's still alive. If the PEP has died but bank customer is alive, this would lead to a mismatch or a false positive. So depending on bank process and guideline, one or two matching rules may be regarded, may be used to dispose screening alert as a false positive. Another question you may expect is, how do you ascertain if the customer screening alert is a true positive? What is the treatment? Uh, what is the treatment of true positive cases? True positive is when bank customer profile matches with screening alert. There may be instances wherein case of PEP, PEP screening, where in case of PEP screening, photo, name, address, or unique identifier like passport number, date of birth, etc., matches with bank customer data. In case of sanctioned individual entity, name, alias, address, official ID such as passport number, etc., matches with bank customer current name, business name, previous name, alias, or other data field. So in case of true match, it will need to be forwarded to MLRO Compliance FCC team requiring their advice on how to proceed. You may also require to generate a PDF and create a case summary, and that need to be attached to customer CDD pack as the evidence. Next question, you you would definitely expect would be, what other challenges faced during the customer screening process? So there can be a lot of challenges which you would see in customer screening process. So one of the biggest challenge is name, which where we perform a name match. For example, like there are a lot of challenges with Hispanic name mismatches. So, for example, in the bank record, the name is Jose Lopez. However, uh, the screening alert is due to because the name matches with Jose Martinez Lopez. So in such scenario, it's a challenge where the Jose Lopez is generating a customer screening alert or a name alert because it matches with the PEP or a sanctioned individual whose name is Jose Martinez Lopez. And also the way we spell few names. For example, Muhammad Raza may be spelled as Mohd or Muhhammad or Mohammad. Another challenge is language translation. A bank with inadequate translation or transliteration process face issues in understanding any document found through an external search. So there may be instances where we need to perform external search because the data available uh, is not sufficient for a match or mismatch, right? And majorly we find a lot of challenges when we are translating a foreign language like French, Portuguese, Spanish, and even the Arabic. It's a big challenge to translate into English using Google Translator or any other translation tool. Date of birth information in different format is also a challenge. Date format available in bank customer may be different from independent or third party source. So that's another challenge where the matching basis the date of birth can be little tricky. And another challenge which we have seen is entity and individual mixed together. The issue can be due to a joint account, sometime trading as or care of data is included in the name field, which again need to be screened separately for complete protection. So who all need to be screened. So that's something which is also being asked in a lot of questions, and you 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 may expect the similar question. So we normally perform screening for a customer who can be entity or individual who's a bank customer, and then the key individual or key principal of that entity. So, for example, CFO, CEO, director, trustee, partner, depending on entity you're working on. So, all those key individual, key principal need to be screened for PEP screening as well as sanction screening. And ultimate beneficial owner, the people who hold more than 25% of shareholding, or or either they control uh, the regular day-to-day business of the entity, need to be screened. Intermediate parents, so so these can be entity which has some or I would say some shareholding in the bank customer, or who's an entity. Other associated parties, and this can be depending on bank to bank, like which all associated parties need to be screened. So associated parties can be directors, and then depending on the entity type, we may You may screen beneficiary and all other associated parties. Now, moving on to our last question, what are some of the best practices in customer screening process? So, name on a sanction list may be misidentified because of lack of identifiable or distinguishing features, leaving the possibility for screening to deliver multiple hits or false positive. And then practically, the screening process might start with standard name search. In the case of potential misidentification or duplicate, the next stage of the check should move on to another unique identifying feature, such as a passport number, driving license, or a date of birth, for example. And if that information is not available, firm should move on to manual check or even seek third party assistance to ensure customers are correctly identified. And and uh, and and in like in one of the bank, we have seen sometime legacy system uh, has a character constraint in the name field, and due to this, ABC Global Marketing Private Limited will need to be written as ABC Global Marketing. Private would be written as PVT, and limited would be written as LTD. And due to which uh, it is it is difficult to screen such entity, because this would lead to either false positive, or it would not get any correct screening results. So we need to understand the data we have, and accordingly we make the changes in our data before screening our customer or customer data. So that's all about like some of the important customer screening interview questions. I hope this will definitely help you to crack your next interview. Let me know if you have any feedback or any questions. Thank you for your time.